evening, everyone, and welcome to the new show with Dan and Jesse. It's going to be on a Wednesday. It's the transfer roundup show. We're going to be covering everything that's happened, the signings that have happened at the big clubs in the Premier League, the ones that haven't happened yet, places that are going. Hi, Jamie. Thanks very much for jumping straight on in. Big moves have happened in the Premier League. Haaland, Nunez to Liverpool. It's kicked off early this time round, which is fantastic. So we'll get straight into it. Jesse, how are you, mate?
Doing great, man.
Doing really good. Brilliant. Well, I think we'll probably start with the biggest signing of them, the one which has got the biggest name and the one who's on everybody's lips. Erling Harland officially from Monday is a Man City player. Big secret. We all knew it. How are you doing, mate? Thanks very much for putting that in there. Appreciate it. Interesting. So what do you think of this? Erling Harland, 63 million is the reported price tag. We know it's more. Doesn't really matter. What matters is what he does on the pitch. How do you see him fitting into Pep Guardiola's system?
I'm really caught up on this one because it's very clear that he's had kind of an iffy injury record. And despite the fact I think he played 29 games in Bundesliga last season, compared to like the 34 that Nunez have, they have similar records as far as goal scoring goes. It'll be interesting to see if we see similar issues when it comes to the injury record. Yes. But if he stays injury free, it's a scary prospect, honestly.
He's an absolute beast, isn't he? He is. He's a goal scoring machine. He's lethal, amazing finisher, intelligent, good header of the ball, hits it with both feet, can run, can sprint. He's a freak. He's a monster, isn't he? In all the right ways. He's exactly what any club would want. I think the biggest and most interesting question when it comes to Haaland is him fitting into a Pep Guardiola system. Pep Guardiola as a manager has been well known in the past and not really kind of take to your natural number 9s, your Zlatans, your Henrys, your Agueros. They've never really fit in what he's done. So for me, just as an opinion, I think Haaland is going to have to adapt to Pep. I don't think Pep is going to adapt for Haaland. I think we might see a different style of play from Haaland. What do you think about that, mate?
I think that you'll see Pep kind of change the system around. Obviously, they've been playing false 9, not so much with Sergio Aguero. That said, Sergio Aguero wasn't really a hold-up man. I don't really see Haaland that much of a hold-up man. Now, he can do that job. But in a lot of ways, a lot like Nunez, a lot like Lukaku, he does like the space in behind, which largely is why he was so effective in Bundesliga, because they do get a lot more space in behind. But he also had Lewandowski. I think he does know how to use traditional number 9. So I do think you'll see a change in system, but I don't think that will hinder Haaland. Now, when it comes to Pep, we know he likes to bed people in for a year. I don't think that he has that time. Haaland's too much of a name, too much of a prospect to actually give him that time to bed in. So,
Haaland's well known throughout his career as being somebody who makes his feelings well known to his managers. That he wants to play. He's been reportedly he's played even when he's injured. He's wanted to play. He said, "I'm fine. I want to get on the pitch." He just wants to play football. And I think under Pep, he's going to come up against a manager who's going to tell him no, who's going to say that ain't happening. You're going to listen to me. You're going to play this game. You're going to be rotated. You will not play 38 games in the Premier League. It won't happen. You'll more than likely play somewhere around 25, 26 starts. And I think we'll see him as a bench player for the rest of them. Hopefully, if he stays injury free. I think you're absolutely correct in bringing up about his injury record because it's something which isn't a negative. It's just a fact. He has had injuries this season, and that is something that needs to be managed. It's a home truth that he isn't a player who is perfect. He's shown this season that groin and muscular issues, hamstring issues have been problems that he's had. If he'd say, for example, had a fractured cheekbone from an injury, which kept him out for 4 or 5 weeks, then you can write that side off it's just a freak injury, it doesn't affect him. But when it's muscular injuries and it's to do with kind of going out there and putting those hard miles in, you do question as to whether come to the Premier League, which is well known as being a very physical league, the highest intensity, the speed, everything like that. That that could play an effect. I hope it doesn't, because ultimately I wouldn't want that for a player, but it could. It certainly could happen. So he's going to come in, and I completely agree with you. I don't think there is the time for him to be like another Jack Grealish. Say, oh, it's okay. We paid the big money, but he'll do better next season. It'll be a case of he needs to come in and, kind of prove those, not doubters, because I don't think there's any doubters. I think it's just to prove he is what he is. If that makes sense.
I think on City's side, when it comes to Pep and being able to manage him, first off, you're right. It's going to be Pep Guardiola as well. I think that Pep's name obviously holds enough weight where when he tells a player to do something, the expectation is you listen and you do it. And I think he can manage that. I also think for Haaland, I do think it's really about being fit for the right games. So let's say that they go into, whether it's a League Cup final, FA Cup final, the last 10 games of the Premier League, or a Champions League final, they need him fit for those games. They can make do. They can score goals. They can dominate games without a player like Haaland. They've shown that for time. And I think it's important that they ultimately go ahead and make sure he's fit for the right sorts of games. While Dan is gone, I assume the kiddos are there. I just want to go ahead and
take a look. I'm back.
You're all right, Jamie. Jamie came in at the perfect time. Anyways, Pep did the same with Zlatan. I actually disagree. Pep and Zlatan fell out and have a terrible relationship. If you want to go ahead and put it in the comments, though, I don't know how Lewandowski and Pep's relationship was at Bayern, so I'd like to know. But I mean, that worked out as well as it probably could have, I imagine. But when it comes to Zlatan, that's not an example I would use because they hated each other.
I think there's a quite an interesting story. You can kind of follow that story between Zlatan and Pep through like YouTube videos and stuff like that. There's been some interviews as to where he wasn't happy with kind of the way things went and the playing style and stuff. And that season, Zlatan left, went on, won trophies where he went, and then they went on and won the Champions League. So it worked out for everybody in the end. So yeah, with Haaland, it's kind of, for me, it's just a case of, I think that this is the marquee signing. It's the marquee signing of the entire, other than Mbappe remaining at PSG, he is the marquee signing of the entire summer, probably the next couple of years. And he's going to have to prove it in a way. He is going to have to prove that. He needs to prove that, he isn't just scoring against teams in the Bundesliga, because that's what's leveled at you. Nunez will have that leveled at him as well when he was scoring as many goals as he did against Portuguese teams. However, Luis Diaz came from the Portuguese league and has come here and done exactly the same. He's come and scored. So it's the Portuguese league doesn't get as much credit as I feel it probably deserves. It's a good quality, strong league. And the people in the know when it comes to buying these players, it's no doubt that players like Vitinha from Porto is currently being linked with a number of clubs, which we're going to go into later. You talk about Luis Diaz, you talk about Darwin Nunez. There's multiple players currently in the Portuguese league who are very well thought of in the Premier League. So that will be a interesting point. I think Haaland is going to score plenty of goals. I just don't think we're going to see him play as many times as some people predict. So just moving on to the next player with Man City, which is going to be Julian Alvarez, who is kind of playing a bit of a sideshow. Do you not think at the moment, Jesse? He is an Argentinian starter, kind of deemed as the kind of the heir to Aguero, the strike and roll at there. He's young, he's smart, he's fast. He's a very, very good talent. Great player that they brought in. Fantastic. The funny thing about him was the links that the agent had to come out and say that we're not going to loan him out, because there's been quite a lot of kind of conjecture as to whether or not he would even start for City. What do you think of that, Jesse?
I think there's a lot of improvement that he'll have to go through before he's going to be anywhere near the first team of City. I think you'll see him in cups. I think you'll see him develop. I think you'll see very much the same thing happen with Alvarez that happened with Foden. A lot of raw potential. Obviously, like you said, he's been kind of spoken about as the next Aguero. Now, that is not a tag you want your client as an agent to be linked to. Now, it's great because you might be able to get a good sale price and a good wage and a lot of hype drummed up around them. But Right, we all know this. When it comes to the Premier League, you don't want to be linked to anyone. You don't want to be the next Thierry Henry, the next Ruud van Nistelrooy, the next Wayne Rooney, the next Sergio Aguero. He's up there. You don't really want that. I think he's very raw, and we're going to see over time how that comes to pass. What I will say about a loan move, that doesn't happen. I think it does go the same way as Foden. I think he keeps him in the squad. They bought him for a reason, and it wasn't because United was in for him. It's not like we were a threat to getting him away from City. They might have pulled the trigger a little earlier because there was interest from other big clubs, but I think that it will go that way where there will be steady progression and just trying to slowly bed him into the squad. So that's just
100%. I agree with you. I can see him being part of the bench. I can see him playing in league games. I can see him playing in cup games. I think Alvarez is one for the future. I think he's going to be in a strange way, the replacement for Gabriel Jesus. He's going to be the player who's going to kind of fit that role. He's going to be on the bench. He will start. He won't play every game. He'll be bedded in and he'll be developed over a course of a number of years. So, yeah, Julian Alvarez, another fantastic signing. And I think one thing that needs to be kind of admired from City is how quickly they've done their business. They've done it in a great way. They've been clinical. They've been researched. They've got the job done very early. Both of which were wrapped up before the transfer window had even opened. And then were announced pretty much on day one, on the Monday, to a lot of fanfare with Haaland and a lot of interactions that came from that, which was clever from them. It was a clever situation that they'd done. So kind of thing now, those are the two deals that have been done at Man City. So there's a couple of tenuous links, and I know James just put something in there now, and I don't really know too much about this, so we'll just go on to this one. Thoughts on Man City going for David Raum of Hoffenheim instead of Mark? You'll have to let me know who Mark. Mark Ugaray, do you mean, mate? Yeah. I don't really know about that. I've been doing a little bit of research, and you'll have to kind of tell me a little bit, kind of what's going on there. But it would make sense. Cucurella's got quite a high price tag of £35 million. He's had a breakout season this year. It would make sense for them to bring in somebody kind of as a backup player. Maybe not like someone who's going to be a starting player, because when you've got someone like João Cancelo, you're only going to be buying a backup. You're not going to be putting them in the team as a first starting player. The same is they were going and buying a right back, because Kyle Walker's the number one, and you're going to be buying someone who's going to have to be happy to kind of sit on their hands for a season or two before they can really make their mark in the team. So going on to that one, one of the links that we are aware of, which is a lot more important, I suppose, is Calvin Phillips, the heir to Fernandinho. And this has gained a lot of traction in the last couple of days, maybe another 12 hours, that Calvin Phillips looks like he's going to be a signing that goes to them. So what do you think of Calvin Phillips at City? Do you see it happening?
Yeah, no, I think it's progressing slowly but steadily, and I think we're gonna see that start being ramped up, as I think it's already started being slightly expedited. They need a DM to sit behind Rodri. Obviously, we saw in the last 6 months, the last 12 months, even last season. Last season, obviously not the one that just finished. Fernandinho is still capable of doing a job. He still had a decent amount of pace, enough legs, and obviously all the technical ability. You don't really lose that. They need someone to come in behind Rodri and not necessarily push him for a place, but be that backup. Calvin Phillips has injury issues, but when it comes to the allure of going to a top club like City, where you know you're going to win trophies year in, year out, it's a massive jump up from Leeds to City. And I think that if he does have anything about him and really thinks about it, I think that he does go there and recognizes that, given the fact that he's injury prone and it is such a big leap, it's worth making that jump.
It is, but I just question as to whether or not for Calvin Phillips in a World Cup year to go to a club like City, where potentially he won't get to play every game, his chances to get into that first team on a regular basis could well be limited. As to whether or not maybe that is the right option, whether or not maybe moving to another Premier League club there's a lot of clubs looking for a player of Calvin Phillips' quality, where I think that he would be an immediate starter. at that team. And just on a personal kind of level as to where he is now, whether or not, he's done his time at Leeds, he's not going to achieve any sort of real level of success or achievement at Leeds. So for me, the City makes sense. Because obviously he's going to a club that's going to likely to be competing for trophies, playing in Europe, looking for domestic titles, looking for the title. So all those situations tick all the boxes. But the side of it that doesn't tick a box for me is that he's going from being the main man, the star, the top man at Leeds, to becoming, in my view, a second choice player at Manchester City. A little bit like what Jack Grealish has done so far. He's gone from being the main man at Aston Villa to becoming the bit part player at being the bit part player at Man City. So it just made me laugh. This, Jamie, is Phillips a B-Tech Declan Rice?
Yeah, basically.
Well, you could aim at him. You could aim at him, to be fair, but I think that could be a little bit harsh. So. Yeah, so we could see what happens there with Calvin Phillips. I think we'll know a lot more in the next week or so as to whether that deal happens. So, in other positions in that team, there's not been a lot more news about City. So it's gone a little bit kind of more quiet, which you would expect because they won't be able to run at 100 mile an hour for the entire transfer window. They've started very highly, and I think they'll allow things to settle, see what they need to do, see if any opportunities come around. And then if those opportunities arise, then we'll see more action from Manchester City. So I don't think they're done with their signings. I think they've got a couple more to go. What do you think, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Calvin Phillips one we're already talking about. I think that does get across the line or another signing in that position. But that Cucurella one is interesting. The more players that get taken from Brighton in their current state, the more expensive their players will become. So
Yes.
they'd be better off. I understand that the DM position, the DM backup, is a more required position because they do still have Cancelo and Zinchenko and players that can fill in there, whereas they don't have a backup DM. I think, though, they want to act on Cucurella quickly, and that's probably the signing. It might happen near the end of the window, but if I were them, I would just advise them to go quick because let's just say someone randomly comes in for a Trossard or someone else comes in for Cucurella.
Yeah.
You got to start moving on these so that you don't end up paying 50 million pounds when you should only be paying 35, 40 this summer. So
No, I totally agree. Definitely, I understand. So, yeah, I think we're going to see some more business out of Manchester City. They might be led a little bit more by activity within the market from other places. I don't see any sales other than Gabriel Jesus coming out of City. There doesn't really seem to be anybody there. They're only a small team as it is. The days of having 22 starting players is kind of gone. Jesus is going to be the man to lead that we would think. So that's that side of it. So I think we can move down the M62 to my club, Liverpool. Darwin Nunez. Wow. I didn't see it coming. I said to you on these previous ones, I was 50-50. I could see us doing it, but equally, I could see us not. It's as simple as that when it came to that signing. I'm very pleased, really, really pleased, really excited that we're going to bring a player of his talent, of his quality into the club. And he offers something completely different, something I've not seen under Klopp as a traditional number 9, a 22-year-old young player signed on a 6-year deal, total value £85 million, 63 million up front with the add-ons. It's a real statement of intent because the last time Liverpool spent money like this, it was Alisson and Van Dijk, and so what are your opinions on this signing? What do you think about Nunez coming to Liverpool?
I think it's good. I think he's raw, and I think you guys overspent. But you guys overspent, and I think that the risk is still relatively low. So for 100 million euros, maybe if you guys were able to talk it down, because I think Liverpool was able to get it down by a couple of million euros, maybe 4 or 5, after they scared everyone else off, rather. I think it's a good signing, and I think that the fact that you guys have Klopp bodes well. I also think that even though you guys overspent, it's not high risk because in 2 years, if it didn't work out, which I'm sure it will, you guys will be able to sell him on for something similar. I don't think it's going to be a risk. I think that he has all the abilities that you guys wanted previously. I think that he's a far cry from Jota playing in the middle, Mane playing in the middle, or Firmino. But I also think that might be nice. The prospect of Trent and Robertson basically just spraying and spamming in crosses into someone who's actually a natural striker is pretty terrifying. So
yeah, sorry, Jamie. I'll just cover this one. Yeah, it's pounds. This is the thing when we deal now in different currencies all the time. In the UK, every deal was done in pounds. Like, we never heard once in any of our media about sales being done in another done in the currency of the club that they're being purchased from. So the deal is 100 million euros in total. So 85 million pounds at the current exchange rate. Liverpool are paying 63 or 64 million pounds up front. I believe it's 63 from what I've read from Paul Joyce. Then there's two deals that are done with this one, and they are appearance based, which would take the deal up to 75 million pounds, the same price as Virgil van Dijk, and then the extra 10 million is linked to Liverpool winning the Champions League. So ultimately, if Liverpool win the Champions League, it pays for itself. And I agree with what Jesse says. Liverpool have overpaid. Yep. However, that's just the world that we live in now. There is not any options available. When you have no other number 9s who are able to do what this guy can do at 22 years of age, can score these goals. Liverpool have been tracking this lad since he played from Penarol. They've been tracking him for 3-4 years now. This isn't just, oh, look, he had a great season last season. This has been a long-term view, a long-term interest. And what needs to be said, not in defence of my club, but just through knowledge of my club, is if Liverpool have spent this money, there's a genuine belief that they believe he's worth this, because Liverpool are well known for not overpaying on players. They've walked away from deals in the past, Timo Werner being one of them, in which they said, no, we're not willing to make that offer. We're not willing to make that deal as it stands right now. So Darwin Nunez coming is a great deal for Liverpool in respect of the current climate. That's the trade-off for me. It was an overpayment. However, in the current climate, it's par for the course. I think it's probably around about right. Go on, Jesse. What have you got to say, mate?
No, I was just going to say, I had this conversation the other day with Twisted in Discord, and we were kind of talking about why certain players are going for more than they're worth. And the fact is, like you were just saying, Dan, the market is super unsaturated. There's not many players out there. There's maybe 2-3 top strikers out there on the market. One of them was signed up by PSG. One of them was Nunez. The other one's had his heart set on Barcelona for God knows how long. It's a seller's market. So
it is.
It's up to the selling clubs. And unfortunately, this season, there's not a whole lot of negotiation to go on. You basically just put up or shut up. So
yeah, but it's that acceptance and that understanding that ultimately Liverpool have been quite clever in getting a £6 million, a 6-year deal. He's on £115,000 a week, which respectively is a great deal for Liverpool. It's a fair increase on his own wages. And it secures Liverpool that we get him all the way up until he's 20. He'll be 28 when his contract comes to an end. So Liverpool will have the very best years, and will leave a nice little extension of availability for Liverpool to take him past the 30. So hopefully not to encounter the Mane and Salah issues, which I think the Liverpool are now paying for. I think they didn't foresee this situation coming along. I think they believed that the success at the club and the management and everything that's going on would be enough to keep the players from demanding extremely high wages that they would want to stay. And it isn't the money that's the issue. So I think that this could be, I may be wrong, but the 6-year deal is unheard of. Liverpool haven't done a 6-year deal before. They did a 5.5-year deal with Van Dijk. That was the longest, and a 5-year deal with Alisson. But the 6 years is a very interesting one. And it's great because when we talk about the way that the transfer cost is amortized, it's across the entire contract, divided by 6 rather than divided by 4 or 5. So I'm pleased, and just look at Twisted's kind of comments here. We'll go into the comment section now. What does success look like for Haaland and Nunez in their first season? Well, it's interesting. Go on, Jesse. You give your view, mate.
I was going to say, I look at it in 2 or 3 phases. I look at it as how quickly do you bet in? That's the first phase, because I don't think either transfer. I think there's more leeway for Nunez to not bet in right away. I think that he'll be given more patience because he isn't necessarily a totally established player as of now, but he needs to bet in as quickly as possible. Haaland basically needs to bet in right away. And then I think the second phase is you start looking at Christmas. What numbers are we putting up? How many games have you played? You start getting more into that. And then obviously the third phase is whatever comes out in the wash. What comes out of this at the end of the season? Did Haaland only score 10, 15 league goals? They could have gone that from someone else.
Yeah.
Nunez, has he betted in quick enough to the point where he can maybe play striker or out on the left wing in place of someone else? I think there's a couple different factors, but the first one is betting in as quickly as possible. So.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right. And there's something that needs to be remembered and something that needs to just be given to the two players in equal measure. They're both very young. They're 22 and 21, respectively. Nunez is 22 and Haaland is 21. These are players who should really be sitting on the bench. These are players who are still learning day to day, learning from their senior professionals at their clubs, taking everything in, being a substitute, being like a kind of periodically starting player. What's important is the two players coming in have been able to prove at a much younger age that they're capable of performing at a much higher level than where their age says that they should be. And players like Jadon Sancho have done this. Players like Jude Bellingham have done this. Is that they're able to show that they can behave and play and perform at a level much that beguiles their younger years. It just needs to be accepted that the two of them, and the one key difference between Nunez and Haaland, and I don't know whether or not this will have much of an effect, but it generally does. Nunez doesn't speak a word of English, and he's going to have to learn, and he'll have to learn quickly, as Klopp has proven with players like Naby Keita and Luis Diaz. The two of them are, well, it is mandatory that everyone speaks in English at Liverpool. That is the point. Everyone speaks in the same language. So he'll have to learn that English. He'll have to be able to communicate with his players. He mentioned that in his interview. Nunez mentioned that, he'll have to learn English because that would have been told to him. I think we're going to see the two of them starting very well. In all honesty, I don't think it's a case of, they only scored X amount of goals so far. You'll need to look at the holistic point of their performances. If they are playing well, that's what will matter, because the goals will come. If they're performing well, if they're making opportunities, they're making chances, if they're in the right positions, if they're doing what is asked of them, they will eventually bed in and the goals will happen. I think players like Nunez, who is a lethal finisher, Haaland is a lethal finisher, I don't think it will be too much of a difficulty for them. As long as they can stay fit, they can stay healthy, they're able to adapt to the new systems which they're going to be asked to do. The adaptability of Nunez is a big bonus. He can play out on that left with Mane officially would play and Diaz would play, and he can play as a traditional 9 in the centre, which is brilliant because it gives them a little bit of versatility. Which Klopp loves. He loves a versatile player, someone who can play in different roles and different positions. And it also presents a level of unpredictability, which is really important, that you go, well, where is he going to play? So he could start in the 9, end up on the left, go from the left back to the middle, causing issues, interchange in between positions, which is a useful situation. I'm very keen to see how he plays Nunez in his team. I see him playing through the middle. Luis Diaz is so much more of that left side. It seems like he is solidly going to take that left-hand side. I can't see that being too much of a kind of if or but. So for me, Nunez will play straight down that middle where Mane has taken that role towards the back end of the season. So yeah, the success is coming in, as Jesse says, bedding in well, getting those performances right, and I think the goals will come. I think the goals will just come. They'll become a product. They'll become a result of playing well. So give them time. They've got long contracts, and we'll see where we are. Go on, mate. Jesse, one for you, mate.
Yeah, Jesse, do you buy the rumors of Mane wanting 400K a week at Liverpool? I don't personally. I think this is a good chance to also pick Dan's mind on what's currently going on, getting lowballed by Bayern Munich, and when I think I think that he probably asked for 400K and knew he was never going to get it at Liverpool, but that also not only gives him a strong position to converse with Liverpool to discuss a new contract, but also with Bayern Munich. I think you end up seeing him on, I mean, and Jamie, you can tell us because Bayern's your club. I don't know how much you guys pay in salaries, but somewhere close to 300, 325K. I think that's just a strategy. So,
yeah. According to reports that I've read, that apparently Mane was looking for somewhere around 300,000 a week, which Liverpool weren't going to give. He may as well have asked for 400. They wouldn't have given him that. They'd probably given like 225. Something like that, but it is over the amount that Liverpool would have offered to a player at that point. I think Mane wanted to leave, in all honesty. I think he wanted to go to another club. I think he'd done his time in the Premier League. We remember, it isn't just Liverpool that he's played at. He's also played at Southampton. He has been here for a long time, and maybe now it's just wants to try a different challenge, and Bayern Munich presents an opportunity for him to pick up titles, pick up domestic trophies, and then have another crack at trying to win the Champions League with another club in his kind of final big contract that he'll get as a professional player. So I don't blame him. I don't see Bayern paying that kind of money in wages. As far as I'm aware, I thought the offer that he had accepted was somewhere around 200 to 250. It's double what he's on now, but it was something that Liverpool would have offered him, which then backs up and evidences the fact that it wasn't about the contract and offer from Liverpool, but more about the fact that he wanted to leave, in all honesty. And it's worked out well for Liverpool because we're going to get a fee for it. 40-odd million euros, 42.5 million euros, around about £37 million is the asking price from Liverpool. We've had some offers from Bayern Munich, which have been quite laughable. I'm not quite sure why that they've made the kind of offers that they've made. Liverpool have been quite clear in what offers that they were willing to accept, and the first two offers were not anywhere near the kind of valuation. The initial value was 22 plus 5 million in bonuses, and then there was a second offer which was 25 plus 5 million in bonuses, but the bonuses were linked to Mane winning the Ballon d'Or, which would have made him only the second African player to have won the Ballon d'Or in its entire history, and also Bayern Munich winning the Champions League, which, with the greatest respect to Bayern Munich, they're around about sixth favourite to win the Champions League. It's not. I would say it's unlikely. I was going to say very unlikely, but I would say it's unlikely in the next 3 years that Mane would win either of those situations. So yeah, it just. I'm not quite sure what the tactic was. But ultimately, I think this week, I think the offer will come through from Bayern, and I think the deal will be done. Because Fabrizio Romano earlier today has come out and said that the personal agreement between Bayern Munich and Mane is all done already. Just it's all about the clubs now to get the stuff done. Jamie's just putting in, going to play number 9 at Bayern. Just need Lamia and a centre back. Yeah, Mane was always going to be Lewandowski's replacement. He was. There was ability. He doesn't have that pace to play on the wing anymore. He doesn't have that kind of explosive power and pace that he used to do. The best thing to have would be to have. He's got me there. Sorry, Jamie. You've got Tarzan's going to outscore Majin Buu. I think what do you mean, Tom off Tom and Jerry? Oh mate, you've got me. Thanks for coming on, Annie. Appreciate it, buddy. So Mane is a done deal by the end of this week. I can't see it not happening. Probably has his medical and gets unveiled sometimes late next week. There, Bayern's got a few deals that they'll need to get done. Mane, he's going to be great. He's going to be brilliant, and I love him to pieces. And He's leaving as a legend. He's going to be one of the best Premier League players to have played at Liverpool, no doubt. And I wish him all the best. I hope he does well at Bayern. I hope he gets all of his dreams come true because he deserves it. He's been a great guy. He's a very charitable fella. He's a good person as well. So I'm really pleased with that. So we've done Nunez. We've done Mane leaving the club. And I think we'll just have a little bit of time. Oh, Jamie, jump on in before we move on, mate. Go on.
Yeah, no. So I think we should just go ahead and go over Vitinha just before we move on, because I understand that it's kind of it's left field shout. Now, a lot of people have been linking him to Chelsea and
Vitinha from today's reports has been linked to Manchester United, has been linked to Arsenal, and has been linked to one unnamed Premier League club as it stands, which is probably Liverpool.
I think it's safe to assume it's Liverpool with the new Liverpool connections, your new DOF, and obviously some of the major.
We're becoming Wolves.
You guys are becoming. They're pissed, man. They are pissed. They said
Wolves are like, we've got no Portuguese players left.
It really is true. You guys are coming for all the Portuguese players. To be fair, they already had Wolves already had him at one point. I didn't even realize that before.
They did, yeah. They had him, and they could have signed him for 20 million euros.
Yep, yeah, they had a buyout on that. And from what I've seen, I don't know a whole lot about him. I didn't even remember he was at Wolves when I heard the news. I went back, looked at it. He looks like a player. One thing I want to say, excuse me, he does not. I don't believe any of these links to United or Arsenal when they come out of Portugal alone. It doesn't matter. It's not just for this player. It's for any player. I don't trust Portuguese links until they're verified by the English media, because Portuguese journalists do this all the time. The only reason why I trust the Liverpool link, which isn't coherent, isn't clear as of now, is because it actually makes sense. This seems like paper talk. I don't believe that, by the way, I would love for us to be in for him, unless obviously Liverpool's in for him, because then we won't get him. But no, but I mean that's just
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I honestly I don't see the logic in this. Now, it did come from Record, which has been spot on this summer, so they have been good. But at the same time, I'm 100% sure this is just paper talk.
And that's what I was going to say to you, Jesse. Like I held that same energy for you. That with certain kind of publications, you've got to take them with not just a pinch of salt. You need to get a metric ton of salt. With some of them is that they will say whatever it is to sell a story. And Record, who have been the Spanish paper who has released the information about Darwin Nunez, they've been spot on. And you have to take them on their last option. So for me, I trust them because they were right on the last one. They can only prove me right or wrong. So I'll trust them that the situation is as it is. According to Fabrizio Romano, an offer has been made for Vitinha, apparently, by a Premier League club, which wasn't the release clause. And Porto had said, thank you very much. However, he can be sold. The price is the release clause. So if he goes and leaves the club to any of these Premier League teams, and you're absolutely right, I could see him playing for Liverpool. I could equally see him playing for Manchester United, or equally playing for any of those Premier League teams. Very technical, classy, good quality. He's a passer. He's got a good shot on him. He's a good quality player. And the price isn't bad either, just short of £40 million. He's not an incredibly expensive player, and would be a great option. So that we'll have to just put on the back burner, but I think that could move quite quickly, because he has that release clause. Because he has a release clause, I could see it happening at Liverpool. If Liverpool are perhaps the unnamed team, perhaps Mane's sale could be a catalyst to see whether or not Liverpool are interested. I think if Liverpool are interested, we'll more likely see something happen towards the end of this week, to be honest, because Liverpool have proven that if other teams are in for a player that they want, they act quickly. They did it with Luis Diaz and they did it with Darwin Nunez. They'll react quite quickly to those situations as they occur. So, yeah, Vitinha, interesting one. Just another player who has been finished and is a signed and done deal at Liverpool. Fabio Carvalho, 19, fantastic. Great piece of business. £7 million, £9 million deal all in. It's a win-win. It genuinely is a win-win. He plays a 10. He plays a very different role to Liverpool, which again, the signing of Darwin Nunez, the signing of Fabio Carvalho could indicate a change in formation at Liverpool and indicate a change in style of play, which is yet to be seen. I think we've all come accustomed to Liverpool playing a typical 4-3-3 with a false 9. We could potentially start seeing Liverpool playing different formations again, as it's well forgotten that Klopp did play a number of different formations in his first couple of seasons at Liverpool before settling on his 4-3-3 with a false 9 once he got the players he wanted to play that formation. So what do you think of that, Jesse? Do you think that we're going to see a change of formation at Liverpool?
Yeah, no, I think we'll see a steady change. I think over the course of the season, we'll see a change. I don't think that it'll happen right away. I'll get to that in a moment, Jamie. I don't think that we'll see it right away. I think we'll see it over time, a lot like we saw, like you said, in that first season, but also 2 seasons ago when you guys switched to going from a more gegenpress style to a more balanced system where you guys kind of pick and choose when you guys want to press up high. There's no need to you don't need to be expending, your players don't need to be running 12 kilometers a game when you're winning every game 3-0. It doesn't really make sense. As for Carvalho, admittedly, I still don't know anything about him. I'm going to hold off and make my judgment next season when we actually see a little bit of him. So,
yeah, no, 100%. And again, I won't, portray to be anything more than knowing some of the key stats from Fabio Carvalho that are interesting. He of the English teenagers, in the English teenagers of players who've come in, he is first for chances created, first for assists, and second for goals. So that says a lot. At 19, he is a win-win situation. He comes in, turns out to be an absolutely exquisite player. It's the bargain of the century. If it turns out that he doesn't quite make it, more than likely he'll double in value and Liverpool will be able to sell him on and go with the next one. It's a real win-win situation for Liverpool. He signed on a 5-year deal, which is fantastic. Keeps him at the club until his mid-20s, probably extend him and then take him all the way up until 30 if they wanted to. So the last player who isn't quite done yet at Liverpool before we go on to some of the other clubs is Calvin Ramsey, right back from Aberdeen. Again, very much in the same mold as Fabio Carvalho. The deal's around about £10 million, apparently, £7 million up front and around £3 million in bonuses. He is quoted as being the player who has created the most chances as a teenager in Europe, which says something. As much as it's only Aberdeen, it shows that of a 19-year-old kid, he will go out there and try his very best to do something for the club. He's created 9 assists and scored twice. He's a good lad. I've watched some of his stuff. He's very keen on coming to Liverpool, and it just seems like another very nice piece of business of bringing in another young player as an understudy who's not going to be on expensive wages, which fits Liverpool's mould. And ultimately, if he doesn't work out and he doesn't develop into the player that Liverpool hope that he will be, they'll more than likely make profit on him and move on to the next one. This is it, Jamie's going full Gordon Ramsay. He does look a little bit like Gordon Ramsay, to be fair to you. Jesse, there's something later in the comments you wanted to pick up on, I think.
I was just going to point out, we're not going to go for a number 9 anymore. So I don't know if you've caught on to that. No, we're not going for a 9. Dan and I have had this conversation quite a few times. And it's actually a progression in United's. I'm not saying anything's really changed at United, but it does represent a significant change that if we're not getting our number 1 choice, Nunez, and we already talked about how there's not that many number 9s on the market. I'm very happy to say we're not going to get a number 9 and we're just going to make do with what we have and go get another choice target, a number 1 or number 2 in a different position. If we were to go out right now and go get Scamacca, even though we haven't even been scouting him, Osimhen, overspend there when we haven't even been scouting him, it doesn't make any sense. So we're not, as of now, all the reasonable and credible outlets and journalists that are involved with United are saying we're not going for that. I'm happy with that. So nice try, but unfortunately,
no cigar on this one.
Yeah.
No, 100%. So with that, I think we'll move on to the next club who have come out a little bit out of left field, but not quite as unexpected as it was with the Conte situation. Spurs, they've done a lot of business. And they seem to be trying to get things done and dusted quite early on. So we'll just run through the free signing, or the two signings, or the one signing, which is absolutely definitely done and dusted. Ivan Perisic came in on a free. Very much a Conte signing. He is Mr. Dependable, can play in multiple positions. He's going to come on a 2 or 3 year contract, and he's going to be, Mr. Dependable. I can't see any great surprises, coming there. He shores up their left-hand side. He can play in defence. He can play on wing. He can play absolutely anywhere. Still has it. Brilliant left foot, and very much a Conte signing. And then the two signings, which are not done yet, but are very, very close to being finished, which is Jed Spence, 22 million from Middlesbrough, playing at right back, 21 years of age. This wasn't a great surprise. I don't think. We all knew that Jed Spence was likely to move to another club, probably in the Premier League, and Spurs was the one who pulled the trigger straight away. And they needed an improvement on Emerson Royale. So, yeah, to be fair, completely makes sense, this one. Going to be a big jump. It's going to be a big jump for him to come up, but I think he's under the right hands. I think he's going to learn the right way, and I think he's going to get all the opportunities to get up and down that wing with Conte. And then the one in the middle, which is the piece de la resistance, shall we say, as it stands right now, Yves Bissouma from Brighton, £25 million. Wow. Like, that is a great price. A player who was quoted at around £40 million some 3-4 months ago, 25 million represents an absolute steal. Jesse, any of those signings there at Spurs that you kind of questioning, or do you just think that this is kind of only the beginning?
Nope, all tremendous signings. Perisic, like you say, straight down the middle. I mean, as close as you can get to a Conte signing. 33, I think. 33/34. Mr. Dependable, as I think Jamie said right here. Injury record is flawless, both foot in, and yeah, he can play either wing. He can play wing back either way. I went back and watched some of his stuff because I never wanted Perisic. I was totally willing to have him. I've always rated him as a player. He was just never very much a United player. But under Jose Mourinho, we wanted him. Some of the goals he scored this last season, my man, he still got it. He absolutely, that left foot is insane. And it's obviously an amazing signing. It's very Conte-esque. Bissouma. People want to go ahead and try to chew out Spurs because I think that there's something about it. Obviously, everyone is like, how did they get this deal over the line for only 25 million? It might have had something to do with the fact that people didn't want to go near him because of the case that's been leveled against him. But if anyone thinks for a second that Spurs is signing him without having done their due diligence, they're sorely mistaken. He's not. They must have an inside track on knowing what's going on with that case. I'm sure that he's in the clear, and it's only a matter of time until that comes to light. The evidence against him, if there was a lot, I think that we would have known about it by now, but I'm sure that they got court records and whatever else there may have needed to be for them to feel confident that he wasn't going to have that issue. And then as far as Jed Spence goes, Jed Spence, Annie and I actually were geeking out about him. I mean, we were geeking out about it because he was playing. We were obviously watching the Nottingham Forest playoff finals game, and I mean, Jed Spence has always been a good player, but he, in a Conte system where he has 3 center backs and a defensive system behind him, I think it's great to have high energy, lots of technical ability, just running up and down that right wing, because he has a security blanket. Not having the or being able to have the 3 behind him in a defensive Conte system. So I think that that's actually a great move for him. I would have loved him at United, but even then, like I just said, just logistically, it makes sense to have a young player who could be vulnerable in the Premier League going up a level, playing for a coach like Conte with the protection of a back 3. So I think that's a tremendous transfer as well. I'm going to be back in like 2 seconds, by the way.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, it's a fantastic deal, and I just echo Jesse's points. It represents them doing the right business and backing the manager, which is something we brought up previously on some of our streams, and we've said this is Daniel Levy and Tottenham, who've been well known to mess around when it comes to transfers and not get deals done, and be able to kind of and ah and go back and forth and do this price and this price and that price, and kind of not end up with anyone of any real note. And bringing in players like Perisic on a free is just solid, good quality business. Jed Spence, 22 million, one for the future, another right back in North London, another wing, left or right back. They don't seem to do well. It's going to be a big step up for him, but I think he's in the right place. I think he's going to do well. I think he's going to be a good performer. And the price isn't bad either as well. Yeah, they're 100%, Jamie. Yeah, the sporting director of Spurs has done a cracking job so far. And the Basuma situation, I mean, we all know, it's well known and well documented that there is an ongoing sort of situation in an allegation in respect to Yves Bissouma. I think this is the reason why he's 25 million, and this is an equal measure, in my opinion. This is an equal measure sort of risk for Tottenham. It is a risk that if the situation wants to go south and he wants to be charged, then that represents a player that they can't play or potentially would lose. But that is by the by, and I'm not going to comment on that. And then it's also a way of Brighton hedging their bets. They're a selling club, and I don't think they wish to be held an asset which they had ideas of selling for more and then to losing for nothing. Because £25 million for a club like Brighton is a big sum of money still, not as much as they would have liked for Yves Bissouma. So we'll see. I think if everything goes well for Yves Bissouma and he hasn't done anything and that situation is dealt with, this is going to be great business for Tottenham. It could turn out to be an absolute nightmare for them, but that is yet to be seen. But we'll judge it as a footballing transfer. He's a top quality midfielder who's Premier League proven, who's going to improve Tottenham. And that, for me, solidifies even further why they're going to be third or fourth this season. No problem at all. So leaving it now to Chelsea to keep their standard high, because Tottenham are moving up. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jamie, he's hit the nail on the head when it comes to it. They've just done great business. They've backed Antonio Conte, which is something that we brought up, me and you, Jesse, on these conversations before, that this is going to be key. They have a manager who says, this is what I want. In reality, he knows that he can't have everyone, but when it comes to his targets, he will want them. And if they're achievable, they need to be done. So with that, Spurs, I don't think, are really going to be selling too many players because they don't really have any top assets that they were really willing to sell. Lucas Moura and Bergwijn, they're the two players who are saleable. Bergwijn wants to leave. He's made comments on international duty only last week that he wants to find a solution to get out of here. But again, Bergwijn's not covered himself in glory, so he's in a little bit of an Anthony Martial situation where you don't want to be there and the club doesn't want you to be there. But the problem is your performances haven't led you to be a saleable asset, that you're not attractive to a number of clubs in respect. So it will be interesting. I don't think we'll see too many sales out of Tottenham. Jesse, what do you think, mate?
No one from midfield is really marketable. I think Bergwijn, they might get lucky there. I think Ajax wants him to go, and I think Louis van Gaal has been pushing really hard with his connects at Ajax. Obviously, Louis van Gaal is Mr. Ajax, and I think he has been trying to push Ajax into making that sell. Whether that comes off or not, I'm just saying they might get lucky there. Lucas Moura is really the only other one. I don't see. I mean, what? And even between those two signings or those two sales, 45 million, it's something, but it's not. I mean, it's nothing great. So
not great for them because it's going to represent a loss really on those two players in reality, isn't it? To be honest. So just as the conversations moved on, which is quite interesting in the comment section, I think this is a good opportunity for us to move on to Chelsea. If you don't mind, mate, you ready to move on to Chelsea? So yeah, Chelsea signed absolutely no one. So that's the start. So the big story is Koundé. Jules Koundé, who really should have already been announced, in all honesty. From the conversations, it was well known that he wanted that this was going to happen. Chelsea want him. Everything was lining up to be a case of pays your monies, and he's yours. And it hasn't happened. And as much as people can defend and deflect and say, well, the transfer window only opened on 11 p.m. on Sunday night. Yeah, but deals can be done weeks and weeks in advance prior to that. This transfer window, ladies and gentlemen, for those who don't know, is actually just for registering players. You can make deals with players all year round. There's nothing stopping you. So don't let your club or PR lead you to believe that it's okay that you still haven't made agreements or made signings quite yet just because the window opened on Monday. That's not the case. So the Koundé situation is interesting because earlier today, reports are coming out from Barcelona that they are very interested in signing Jules Koundé, and Barca are trying to sign him. And this could be linked, and I've put a little note in my notebook, which I'm going to refer to. Gerard Piqué, Mr. Shakira, or no more Mr. Shakira, shall we say. And there's reports coming out from Barcelona, I don't know how true these are, that he is surplus to requirements for his activities off the pitch. Which, if you want to put 2 and 2 together and get 4, Koundé makes sense. He does. He's in La Liga.
Apparently,
he's young.
Apparently, those hips do lie, Dan.
Those hips certainly do lie. And this time, it's for Barca. It's not for Africa. It's for Barca this time round, I'm afraid. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens. He's living in a flat somewhere on his own, and yeah, looks like he's not got a job anymore. So we'll see where Piqué goes. So Koundé to Barcelona. Those hips don't lie, shall we say? So with that, we'll go on to some other little signings that they've so far not done. Selena, he plays for Chicago Fire, a American goalkeeper. So this links into 2 players, actually. They're also in for a player called Strakosha. He's a goalkeeper from Lazio. Fulham are also very interested in too. So those 2 players, Selena, they've not made an offer for yet. Real Madrid have. They've made a $10 million offer, which has been rejected. So it shows an intent so far in the market to buy a second choice goalkeeper, because I can't see them coming in to unseat Mendy, which then leads us to believe that Kepa Arrizabalaga is leaving. However, there's no links to him yet as to where he might go. So, Jesse, do you see Kepa leaving? How much do you think he would be sold for?
This is a very good question. I'm just going to do this real quick. Contract, because I'm very interested. So they signed up on a 7-year contract. Jesus Christ. So he's a free agent in 2025.
Bargain.
He's on a salary of £8 million. I think they want to. Who's their number 3 right now? Is it still what's his face? Who's the bald dude? Chat, help me out here.
Oh, I know who you mean, but I don't think he's there anymore. Yeah, chat. Who was the goalkeeper who was going to come up? Willie Caballero, but he's not there anymore.
Yeah, so
he's not there anymore.
Antonelli. Yeah, so they have to get rid of Kepa, but I just where?
Where does he go?
His contract is up in 3 years. So I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know if they're just putting feelers out there. I don't know if this is an American connection. I don't know. This makes so little sense to me. I don't necessarily know how to, especially because the news is like brand new. I don't know exactly how to digest it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I mean, they're in the same situation as United is with De Gea, despite the fact that we have our highest paid goalkeepers actually playing.
Yeah.
Is our first choice goalkeeper. But yeah, no, this, like you say, this would basically show signs that they are looking to sell this year. But I mean, it's a howler. This is just a howler. There's no other way to put it. And then you start looking at the defense. We talk about Koundé. They might not even get Koundé now. Now he's linked to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Defense is the only position in Chelsea's entire team where they can sign without selling because they just need to fill positions. Midfield, They need to sell a couple.
Yeah.
They need to get rid of a couple of their boys from the youth academy in order to open up room, or get rid of like Jorginho, get some money on those. Attack is an absolute mess. I mean, they talk about and it's popular because he's American and because he's injury prone. They need to get rid of Pulisic. 110% they do, but they need to get rid of Ziyech. They need to get rid of Werner. They need to get rid of some of their other assets way before even Pulisic. But they need to get rid of all of them. They need to get rid of Lukaku. But the problem is they can't.
We're going to move on to Lukaku. I've got some information from Romano about Lukaku.
Just as an overview, though, they need to get rid of these because they can't actually bring in more players until they get rid of them. Same reason why United isn't going out and buying center backs right now. Because until we get Frankie in, or another midfielder, or two midfielders, we can't actually buy in that position. We can buy one winger, and we can buy about 3 midfielders if we wanted to. But we can't buy defenders. Chelsea can't buy midfielders, and they can't buy attackers, and they certainly can't buy goalkeepers. So this is why it makes absolutely no sense to me.
Well, that's my point, because me and you both know that Chelsea has to sell because they have less money now. They're not as rich as they were. Their owners are rich, but they've lost a lot of money. They will have to balance the book somewhere. And the way to balance it is by reducing that squad cost down, reducing the wage bill, reducing some of the players, which they've reduced the wage bill through players which I think they wouldn't have wanted to actually sell. Players like Antonio Rudiger leaving the club in the way that he did, and losing Christensen, which they may well have not been overly upset about losing Christensen, but to lose Christensen and Alonso and Rudiger and potentially Cesar Azpilicueta, which is on a day with injuries, that's a back four. That is a Premier League quality back four. Chelsea fans will dig out Marcos Alonso. However, Marcos Alonso is effective and does a job at that club. So they've lost a lot of players in that team. As you say, they need to purchase at least 2, if not 3, defenders this season. And there's nobody so far other than Jules Koundé, which looks potentially to be in a lot of jeopardy right now. And it could well be. Tomorrow, this is slightly off topic, but does affect a lot of clubs. Barcelona. Jesse, can you just explain what's happening at Barcelona tomorrow and why this could affect the greater transfer window, please?
Yeah, so essentially Barcelona are going into the essentially what is a board meeting, but it's a meeting between the board, the executives, the members, and the shareholders, where they will now go in and vote on basically referendums pertaining to the way that Barcelona will move forward for the next season. So they're voting on 3 different, they call them levers, but they're basically trade deal agreements. One is for Barcelona Studios, one is for television rights, and one is for the merchandising rights of Barcelona Football Club. Any way you put it, these are going to be short-term fixes to a long-term problem that could affect them over the next course of a decade. What's going on, Flo? How you doing, man? But yeah, so they have these 3 different trade deals that they're going to be voting on tomorrow. I think the main ones are Barca Studios and then the television rights. The television rights right now in La Liga, and if anyone knows better than me, you can correct me, but I'm pretty sure I got this down, are based on attendances to games. That's the first one. The amount of games that are televised and watched, so viewers per game. And then there was one other facet metric. Of that, but one other metric. But the fact is that one is the one that keeps Real Madrid and Barcelona earning somewhere around 60 to 70% of the total TV revenue in La Liga. But this is what they're voting on, basically giving up in the CVC agreement.
Yeah,
which short term they'll get an influx of cash, something around 200 to 400 million euros.
Yeah.
But in the long run, they're giving up around 25% of their television rights. So
which is a long-term loss.
In 10 years, it's going to be a massive loss. So this is kind of like the situation they're looking at. Do we give up our merchandising or television rights, and then Barca Studios, which does a lot of the commercial aspect, sort of deals for Barcelona, but is still owned by the club, which if they give up that, then they're going to lose out on even more commercial rights. Do they give up this to get themselves out of this, what, €1.5 billion worth of debt?
Yeah.
Which I think the total agreement, if they were to pull all three levers, they would get somewhere around 760, 740 million euros.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Because if they do tomorrow pull any one of or all three or any combination of these levers, this will have a knock-on effect of all clubs. Because if Barcelona pull these handles and agree to do this and give themselves an enormous influx of cash, which will be available to their club, that means that they won't have to sell the players they don't want to sell, and they will be able to buy the players that they want to buy. And that's why it's important. And this is why it could affect Chelsea in respect to Jules Koundé. Because if they have the cash, they need a centre-back. And if you want to believe the stories about Gerard Piqué, then Jules Koundé could very much well come into that club. There's reports that they're looking at renegotiating contracts and selling on players like Clément Lenglet, Samuel Umtiti, and bringing them out of the club. So that will be interesting. Barcelona are very heavily right now weaponizing their brand. They've sold the rights to the stadium naming. It's now the Spotify New Camp Nou. They're going heavy at getting themselves back to being the superpower. And I don't think it'll be long before we see them back into that top table. What do you think of that, Jesse?
Yeah, even then, Dan, I don't think that this keeps them from selling players, because right now they're being severely limited by La Liga despite their debt. It has almost nothing to do with their debt. As a massive issue, the massive issue is the salaries and the salary cap, and there is a correlation between how much they make, how much profit they're in, and how much debt.
It's a debt to wages cap, isn't it?
Exactly. So there's some correlation, but they're still going to need to sell players. They still can't renew Dembele, which we'll get into because we talk about Chelsea, and this is the knock-on effect. I imagine they're still going to need to sell De Jong. When it comes to Busquets, who's their highest earner, and then Jordi Alba, who's their second highest earner, they're out of contract. Both of them are out of contract in the next 2 years. They're not going to be able to renew them. So I think they're really looking at those four players and saying, if we want to renew Gavi, if we want to bring in Lewandowski, if we want to bring in Koundé, because they're not going to have Piqué, they still need to get all four of those off their wage bill. I honestly don't think this CBC agreement saves them, but this is why I told Annie earlier, we just have to wait 48 hours, because the vote will happen tomorrow. And so does Chelsea, by the way, need to wait just to see what happens. But the vote will happen tomorrow, and then whatever comes out on the back end of that, we'll see Friday. I think Friday morning, your guys' time, I think we'll see what's actually going on at Barcelona. So
that makes sense, definitely. So I think that's going to be an interesting one. So just as you say, moving on to another loosely linked player, as you say, is we talked about the goalkeepers. Seems Chelsea are going strong in buying a backup goalkeeper, which elements them to selling Kepa. But that's not quite where the work needs to be done. The work needs to be done in defence, and that is the question. So I've got nothing else to tell anybody as solid links when it comes to defenders coming into Chelsea, because there isn't any at the moment. Chelsea's been very, very quiet at the stands when it comes to kind of links. But one link that doesn't go away, and they'll be forever linked with him until he signs a deal, and that is Ousmane Dembele from Barcelona. Out of contract at the end of this month. He's a free agent, and he will be linked with Chelsea because of Thomas Tuchel. He'll be linked to Liverpool, to any of those Premier League clubs where there's an opportunity to play, because he is every single time. He's always been that way. If he does come to the club, I think that represents a massive risk, a very, very big risk of a player who has spent a lot of time on the bench, a lot of time injured, and a lot of time out with quite serious injuries as well. Not just, little sort of issues. There have been quite long-term layoffs as well. He has got all the ability in the world, but I just question as to whether or not in a team like Chelsea, who is crying out for stability, players that they can rely on, players who aren't going to spend time injured, a player like Ousmane Dembele is just the wrong way to go. And I don't think he wants to go to Chelsea. I think he's holding out for a different deal. Jesse, what do you think?
Yeah, he very clearly wants to go to PSG. which is the main issue. Like I mean, I just said I don't think Barcelona can afford to keep him. There is a deal on the table.
There's a contract on the table. It's been said.
Yeah, there is a contract on the table for him, but I think it's a massively or somewhat reduced wage. I don't think he's going to take it. I think he's obviously headed out. I know that they put the contract on the table and haven't heard back from his agents or himself since. So it just
he's leaving. We know that
he's leaving, right? But I think he's going to hold out for PSG. But I know Chelsea want him, and I know Chelsea, this new bully group with Clear Lake Capital or whatever, they really want to bring him in as the marquee signing. But like Dan says, and I'm sure as everyone in the chat would agree, it's a massive risk. I mean, for the money he's going to be on a free, injury prone, attitude issues. I can imagine Tuchel wants him. He had him at Dortmund. But even then, I seriously question the efficacy of bringing in someone like that.
It's just not the signing that you need right now. It looks great, doesn't it? Because there's nothing more exciting than bringing a striker in. We can all admit that. If Liverpool announce a new centre midfielder, if it's not someone who is literally top tier 1, Jude Bellingham, if Liverpool are announcing Vitinha, let's say this week, I'll be happy. But I won't be like as excited as when you bring in an attacker, because that always gets the fans up on their feet, doesn't it? Like a player like Dembele will be, oh, that's a big winner for the fans as it is, but it's not really the important role as it stands right now. I thought there'd be a lot more stronger links to right backs, players like, for example, just as an example, Mark Cucurella potentially. I know Ben Chilwell's back, but Ben Chilwell's not a guaranteed. Emerson is coming back. So they're covered on that side, I think. But then on the right-hand side, a player like Jed Spence probably could have made sense, to be honest, coming on to Chelsea. They weren't in for him, from what we're aware. And there's no links. There's no genuinely solid links as it stands for Chelsea. So as it stands, it's nothing to worry about as a Chelsea fan, I don't think. But it's just leaves some question marks, to be honest. It leaves some question marks because when you can see that there's a job and there's positions that need filling, you'd like to be hearing the right stories and you'd like to know things are happening just for your sense of sort of kind of these guys know what they're doing. Because when you have a new ownership, what you want to know is that these guys are kind of getting the job done. That gives you that level of confidence. And just before we move on, I just want to thank everyone who's watching. We've got 6 viewers. We really, really appreciate your time. Thanks very much for coming in, jumping in the chat. If you can put a like on for everyone who's in there, if you just put a comment in, I'd just love to know who's watching, just for our kind of idea. If you want to be involved, we'll probably put a link out in a little bit and just have a little discussion on what's going on. So the last point on Chelsea before we move on to any of the other clubs, Lukaku. Fabrizio Romano has put out, I'm going to use Fabrizio just because he's a man in the know. He seems to only speak when it's the truth. He seems to only speak when he is guaranteed and knows what's going on. Lukaku to Inter Milan, loan deal. He only wants to go to. He only wants to go there. That's it. Apparently, that's the only club he wants to go to. And there is ongoing talks. The first set of talks happened today. Were apparently positive. And going back to Inter, which serves as perhaps the worst piece of business to have been done in the Premier League since Paul Pogba.
No, much worse. I think he's probably the worst transfer of all time. I mean, he must be, unless they get their money back. But even then, it's an absolute howler. He came in for 100 million, did absolutely nothing, and he's gone. Best part about it is he's running away from Chelsea. Chelsea fans don't want him. Chelsea Football Club don't want him. Guess who else doesn't want him? Inter Milan fans absolutely hate him. They despise him. Yeah. He ran out the door the first chance he got. I mean, like, they needed the money, but go ask Inter Milan fans. I'm absolutely sure everyone doesn't like this guy. Now the board at Inter Milan might want to bring him back in, but the fact is nobody likes him. So, no. I mean, do I feel bad for him? On a human level, it's sad. Do I feel bad for him? No, because he dug his own grave. He did it. He's done it at every club he's been to, minus Everton. No, I don't care. I don't care. But unfortunately, he did it to himself. And the irony is he's going to go back there. And I think the Milan fans, if he performs, will forgive him. But it's just
Yeah.
funny. It really is just, it's just ironic. So
It is. I mean, the writing was on the wall when he made the comments to Sky Italia back in December, when he kind of made mention about being at Inter Milan and, you know, if you're not getting everything. He did that interview, and that was just it. That was the end of it. You could see clearly from whatever was going on, his mind was made up before Christmas that he didn't want to be at the club anymore at the end of the day. And Lukaku's proven time and time again that he's not a Premier League level player, and not to say that he doesn't have the quality, because he does have quality. The difference is whether or not that quality correlates here in the Premier League, and Lukaku just doesn't do it. He doesn't seem to do it. He has an attitude problem. He I don't know, he's just on a professional level. I don't think he's an incredibly professional player. So yeah, Lukaku to Inter. I think this is Inter's market. I think it's their choice. They know that they can kind of get him for whatever deal makes sense to them. In all honesty, because Chelsea need to get rid of him. It's as simple as that. They absolutely have to get rid of him from any means possible. The fact that he only wants Inter, apparently, actually makes Linter's position even stronger. It makes it even stronger for them to sit there and go, we'll take him, but it's going to be on our terms. And that doesn't mean that they will pay a loan fee, but I think there'll be a lot of acquiescence from Chelsea. I think they'll have to pay most of his wages, pay half of his wages. I think they'll have to come down on the loan fee. I think it'll be an option to buy. I don't think it'll be an obligation. I think it'll just be everything that suits the to Inter Milan versus Chelsea. So that for me is going to be done, but I don't know how long it'll take. It could take over a month, this one. I think this is going to rumble on for a little while now.
Yep. Yeah, they do. And even more irony is that they're going to be paying us in some form or fashion for this deal, because Inter still owes us money. So I don't know how they're going to negotiate, how they're going to make this deal work. But I mean, Jamie said it, and excuse my French, but karma's the bitch, gentlemen. Like that's what happens when you start playing with fire and you don't know what you're doing, and you start making club signings above the will of your coach, and then obviously everything else falls apart. So
no, 100%. No, totally. So that's Chelsea. I think we can move on to Arsenal. I think we'll move on to Arsenal and just kind of discuss. They've done business. They have done some business. I'll just move my page over. They have brought in. They've actually been linked to a lot more players. There's a lot more solid links at the moment with Arsenal, and it is actually deals that have currently been done. The deal that is done over at Arsenal is Marquinhos. And before anyone gets too excited, it's not the Marquinhos. It's a different one. He's 19. He has played on the right wing, signed from Sao Paulo, played 31 times, won a trophy with them. Fantastic. Played for the Brazil national team, under 17s and under 19s. £3 million a compensation fee, as opposed to a transfer. Caused quite a bit of a stir down in Brazil. They're quite upset about this. Because apparently there was some sort of loophole or kind of clause in his contract that meant that he was able to leave within his last year of his contract for a compensation fee, as long as it wasn't within South America. So this has been called out on a number of times. 19 years of age, Jesse. We've done a little bit of reading up on him. He's going straight into the youth team. He's going to be on the bench. He's not a starting player. Not exciting in respect of, yeah, it's nice to get in this young player who's got potential, but he's not going to be improving Arsenal from the get-go. They're not better for having him at the moment, but an interesting signing nonetheless. But the more interesting conversation, I think, Jesse, is the players that they're linked to. And I'll fire them out because there's 6 of them, and then we'll go over it. Yuri Tillemans, centre mid, £25 million. This one's the hottest and the strongest one currently available right now. Aaron Hickey, which we've talked about before, still linked right back, 20-something million pounds, £22 million is the fee. Still not done quite yet. I thought that this would be done. They're linked to Vitinha, again, around about £35 million. Don't think that happens. in all honesty, but he's linked again, but he's going to be linked. Gabriel Jesus, 40-something million pounds is the going rate for that guy. We thought this would happen. Still doesn't seem to have really materialised quite yet. Rafinha is now being linked, and I think this is actually piggybacked off the fact that Barcelona's interest has cooled down a little bit. So this does make sense that he's going to be being linked to with Arsenal. And the interesting side of it is, just with him, before we move on to the completely absurd and completely unlikely transfer, I don't know where he would even fit, because Bukayo Saka plays that side. I don't see where Rafinha would even get into the Arsenal team, in all honesty, because that's Saka's position. And then the final one, Osimhen, Napoli, apparently. He's going to be £75 million at the very least, plus bonuses and fees. This is Dusan Vlahovic all over again if they were to go in for a player like Osimhen. I can't see that happening. So, out of those links there, Jesse, do you see any of them coming off, mate?
Yeah, Tielemans, I see that's just going to be a done deal.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone else is going to come in for him. He said a lot. He said he won Champions League football. He's not getting Champions League football. He's also not good enough for Champions League football. He's a decent player, but he's an upgrade on Granit Xhaka. That's what he is in actuality. Gabriel Jesus, they better get over the line. Otherwise, Arsenal fans are going to go into a meltdown. And I would too. As a United fan, if we had been chasing, like with this Frankie de Jong deal, if we chase him for more than another 4 days, especially given what's going to come out over the next 2 days, then I'll be absolutely livid. There's no reason doing it. The interesting thing about Jesus is City knows how much he's worth and are willing to wait, because they know Arsenal are in a desperate position. They know that Arsenal really want him. He's their first choice. And they know Arsenal will go all the way down to the wire to get him.
Yeah.
So should they get him? Yes, but they should just stump up the extra 5 million, 10 million pounds. Get him right now, so you're not going into some sort of transfer battle over his signature. Hickey, I mean, get him in because you need personnel.
They need a right back, don't they?
Yeah, they do, because I mean, Tomiyasu with 3 months out of cap strain, and they don't have anyone else really. Rafinha is an interesting one. You say, well, that's Saka's position. I actually think that would be the best signing that they could make this summer, besides Jesus, and then Tielemans is up there as well. But Rafinha, Saka needs competition.
He does. He needs a rest.
Yeah, he needs a rest. He needs competition. We're not ever going to know how good Saka can be until we see a proven right winger, inside forward, come up and challenge him. Like he needs someone to push him. And chances are, if Arsenal don't get top 4 next season, I think you're looking at 2 more years of Saka before he moves to a bigger club. So
I think one.
But one maybe even, but that's really
what 2 years left on his deal.
And that contract is stalling too, because Saka knows he can get whatever he wants out of Arsenal at this moment in time, because he is their best player. He is their star player. Bringing in someone like Rafinha and having Rafinha compete with him makes it very clear to Saka that there's a position there that you still have to earn. It's not yours. It's not a God-given right. Saka does not come across as a stubborn or arrogant player, but at the same time, when you become complacent, it both hurts the team, but also creates even the best men and women, their mentalities change when you feel like you have a right to something. So I think Rafinha is actually, that could be the best signing they do this summer, just for the dynamic of the squad.
No, 100%. But it also would, interestingly, with what you mentioned there, Jesse, it actually offers a very logical and a very shrewd option to ensure themselves against Saka leaving as well, that they don't have to panic by. That, let's say, for example, worst comes to the worst, Saka next year hasn't signed the deal. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He's gone from a 60-80 million pound player, somewhere around that figure. We'll use that number as it stands. He's going to drop, and his value is going to go to around about 55 million, because he'll have 1 year left on his deal. And that represents opportunities for clubs like Liverpool, Manchester City to swoop in. And trust me, they will.
Yeah, they will.
They will. They'll be there.
And
Ready.
You made that point. You made that point, and that's exactly actually where I was also heading with it. Is that it means that you don't need to worry as much if you are going to lose Saka for sure, 110%. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I agree with you. Some of the goings from there, Lacazette gone for a free. Represents okay for Arsenal, I suppose. He was a failed transfer. In long story short, in all honesty, he never really lived up to his expectations. As to where we thought he was going to be. And Matthew Guendouzi gone for 9 million. He's now longer in the club. Had a fantastic season over in France. Clearly wasn't wanted by Arsenal, and at £9 million is a steal. He's an absolute bargain at that price. To be honest with you, I think they've done well to get them for that price, and they've took advantage. So Arsenal are on the fringe of getting it very right, but they're also on the fringe of getting it very wrong. So it's going to be interesting that they're going to need to see, at least for me, three of those deals. I think Tielemans, Hickey, and Jesus are absolute. They need to happen, in my opinion. I think they need to happen. I don't think they get Rafinha. If they do get Jesus, there isn't enough money in the budget. They'll get one of the other. So Rafinha represents a good option when it comes to attacking threat because of Saka's situation, but it doesn't fix the idea that they have an actual number 9 who isn't Eddie Nketiah, who only turns up for 2 months of the season. So we'll wait and see on that one. Right. So with that, I think we're left with just the one club to wrap things up. Manchester United, Jesse. I'll let you take the lead on this one, mate, and keep us up to date with what's going on down at Old Trafford.
Yep. So this one's actually pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot to really speak about because everything is contingent on what happens with Frenkie de Jong. And as we explained with Barcelona earlier, that's going to have a massive input on who is sold from Barcelona and Frenkie de Jong. Yeah, exactly. There we go, Annie. Boo. Yeah. Just calm down. Calm down, Annie. Turn off Twitter. You have a 48-hour ban. I'm telling you, you're not allowed to turn on the Bird app until Saturday morning, or whatever. Honestly, like everything's hinging on this Frenkie de Jong deal. The weakest point here is we still have a massive chance of getting him, but it's such a sloppy deal that I'm not even sure I want to hold out. Now we're just at that point where we might as well just wait and see what happens because I think we'll know what's going to happen by Sunday morning at the very latest. Like we'll know like this deal is happening 99%.
Yeah.
But the problem is with this de Jong deal, we've been putting off all of our other transfers for the sake of this one transfer. So everyone, all the United fans are crying and getting nervous online, and I understand that. But really, it's not the fact that it's Frankie's fault or Barcelona's fault. It's our board's fault and our scouting fault, our scouting department's fault for not moving forward and getting other transfers done when we should really be doing more than one transfer at a time.
Yes.
So whether we get Frankie or not, I don't know how to feel. Obviously, I'll be very happy that we get him if we get him.
Yeah.
But we still wasted an extra week waiting on this vote in Barcelona to make up their minds. And even if they do decide to sign these agreements, we still might be able to get him. So why were we waiting in the first place? None of it makes sense. And then the nice thing about United this summer is that all of our targets are very clear. So De Jong obviously is our number 1. Nunez was our number 2. Obviously, Liverpool got him, came in, got him as I told you. I told you 3 weeks ago on this channel.
You did.
That's what was going to happen if Liverpool wanted him. But then Timber, Torres, Antony, and that's it. Those are our only other 3 targets. There's talk about Neves. Neves is a backup to De Jong. Sangare is more paper talk. It doesn't make any sense for United.
He makes sense for everyone, doesn't he? Because of his price, because he's got a release clause.
But it doesn't make sense from what we know about United. Like that's not a United signing. Like we would rather spunk 120 million pounds on Rice for God knows what reason than go get a great deal out of PSV for 30 million, euros.
Timber is staying. Oh, okay. I'm interested to see where that's coming from.
He doesn't. It's neither here nor there. Timber doesn't want to come at this point in time if we
Okay.
don't give him first team football. We don't know any of the discussions that have been happening
No,
behind the scenes. So
and I agree with that, Jesse. I agree. Julian Timber has got a World Cup coming up, and he has a manager who clearly says, if you ain't playing, you ain't playing here. It's as simple as that. So he's got to look after him, say verified sources from Holland. So we'll wait and see on that one. So that's interesting information coming out with Julian Timber. So we'll let that cook.
I've already seen those sources. I think that's one phone call away from going either direction. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. Torres, we could probably get, but we're gonna run into. I think Chelsea will end up coming in, and I know that Tomlin has been linked to him. I think Chelsea is probably going to come in as well because
they need him more than you do.
They need center backs, man. Like they don't even have the players. Neves, they're asking for £50 million. That's never going to happen.
40 at most.
Yeah, 40 at most. Maybe 35 with 5 million in add-ons. That's really what he's worth. But really, no. I think United's business is really simple. We have 4 targets.
Yeah.
That's it. And everything just rests on De Jong. So United's a little bit of a boring one right now, which is why I tell United fans, just turn off Twitter, turn off all the notifications, wait a couple days, and then check back in because we're not going to know anything. So when you're like, why aren't we signing anyone? Because we're not even going to get any news until this De Jong thing is fully decided. And this will be decided by Sunday. I am 95% confident.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that saga will come to an end one way or another by the end of this week. We'll know a lot more about what's going on there. The only, I suppose, the interesting side is the information that's coming out as an exit from the club, which United isn't doing very much of at the moment, which it needs to. Please don't turn us off. We're still live. We appreciate you being here, Annie, all the time. So please don't turn us off. Is Dean Henderson leaving the club on a loan deal, apparently, to Nottingham Forest, with an option to buy, as it stands, not an obligation, but an option to buy. And this represents a good situation for both clubs in a way. Not the greatest of options, because I think that they would have probably preferred to have sold Henderson. But I think United have realised that as it stands right now, that the best opportunity is to get a loan fee. Plus, hopefully, he goes to Nottingham, has a great season, and then is basically going to be purchased for 20 million next season. I think that's the idea.
Yeah. So I think the best situation we could have there right now, they want an option to buy for 20 million, and then a loan with a loan fee. I would say add in a appearance stipulation. Let's say 20 appearances this next season in the league.
Yeah.
And then reduce that buyout by 5 million. So it's 15. And then ask for, I don't know what they're asking for the loan fee, but 2 million for the season. So it would come out to around 17 million. You get to try to buy, but if he plays more than 20 games or up to 20 games, then we get our money. It's not, I think it's easy to do to United because we have money, but I think we need to get to the point where we need to get the money for players.
I think with Nottingham Forest, I think the situation is that for Dean Henderson, it will be based on them staying in the Premier League. I think that would one of the stipulations that would need to be kind of written in there, that if he has an option to basically go, I know I'm all right, if they go down again.
Especially for Dean. Yeah, no, that's very true. Of course. Yeah. On a player level, I'm talking more
club to club.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking more club to club. That's what I would expect. But yeah, no, in Dean's case, yeah, he's too good to be playing in a championship. That is the truth.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he wouldn't play there. He's too good. And I think he represents probably about the going rate. For goalkeepers, kind of an option as it stands right now, I think around £20 million. Kind of Ramsdale sort of set that kind of price tag with last season at Arsenal. I think that's where Quivine Kelleher kind of fits into with Liverpool. I know that there's a potential that he's sold, that he wants to go on and play first team football. He deserves to play top first team football somewhere. He is a good goalkeeper. I don't think a loan deal would be good enough for him. I'd love to see him go to another Premier League team on loan, especially from a Liverpool fan. Dean Henderson makes absolute sense. I mean, he was at Sheffield United, and I thought that that's where he would kind of, if he didn't stay at Sheffield, I think he would have then maybe moved to another mid-table Premier League club already. So I'm quite surprised that he's still at your club, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that the competition was something he thought he could measure up to. I said this on a Discord call earlier today to you. He thought he could outdo David De Gea for the number one position. David De Gea said, "Boy, do you know who you're talking to?" And now he's second choice, stuck in second choice, and needs to go down the table back to basically Sheffield United level club and try to work his way back up. So he took a risk. I rate him for it. I've always rated his bravery and his confidence. You need that as a goalkeeper, especially if you're going to be a number one at a top club. You can't be shy. But I mean, he shot a shot and he missed. So
yeah, and there we go. So yeah, I think that's that's about right for him. I think that we need to see some more exits though at United. Do you not think, Jesse? Who are your main people you think need to be kind of being moved on from the club at United? What's your prime ones to go?
Tony, Wan-Bissaka, Bailly, obviously Maguire. That's not happening this season though. McTominay needs to go, but he'll be kept around. We're gonna keep Marcus for another year at least.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a good 7-8 names. Annie, name the ones that I'm missing because I know I'm missing like two pretty obvious ones. Oh, Henderson, obviously, and then there's at least one more like really obvious one that I'm missing there. But no, we need to clear out. The fact is, not all of those are going to go. What you do is you get rid of Jones,
Luke Shaw.
Jones. Yeah, Shaw's going to stay though. So that's and the other thing about Shaw. A lot of these players need to go because they're bad influences in a dressing room and they're very unhappy. So I would rather get the attitudes out rather than Shaw's never going to be an issue. He might not be the best professional, but he doesn't have an attitude. So
no, I agree there. I mean, again, you're a club a little bit like Chelsea in the circumstance, because I think we've compared the two clubs recently. Kind of they're in a similar boat as it stands. In respect of needing players and needing to sell players and having to try and balance those two situations out in the correct way. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting more so for me as a Liverpool fan as to whether or not your sales are going to be more interesting actually than your buying, because it will be interesting as to how well you're able to offload the kind of players which were clearly forming part of the problem that happened last season. Because Ralph Rangnick, he wasn't telling no lies, was he? There was clearly things going on at the club at player level. And when he says that there needs to be potentially 10 new players, I mean, that's damning. I mean, that's just damning sort of, kind of a rhetoric. So there's a lot to do there. And I think there's a lot of players that need to be moved on. And I'm just interested to sort of see as to why there's nothing solid quite yet, as in the links for those players as it stands. Is that worrying you at all?
Yeah, this is exactly why when Andy says we're not signing anyone this summer, I don't think we're selling anyone this summer if this Frankie de Jong thing doesn't go. Like, this is where the barometer is going to be set. We've already spent too much time, but this is the absolute catalyst, which is why I'm holding off pressing the panic button like everyone else, because everyone's freaking out. And I'm like, turn off Twitter for a few days. Just see what happens with this. I don't know what will happen. I'm 50-50, but this is why I said by Sunday, I'll be able to tell you, Dan, whether this is going to be a 2 out of 10 window or 7 out of 10 window. I'll be able to tell you. Once I know what's going on with this, I'll be able to tell you, because we need to offer players, but we also need to fill positions. So we can't just sell players. Like, we kind of do need to take a little bit of an approach. We need to get rid of Bailly and Jones first, probably keep Tony and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because we need to get rid of the players who absolutely will not play. Yeah. And then wait to get rid of the players who, I mean, everyone knows like Tony's had an awful season, but the fact is 2 years ago, he banged 25 goals for us in all comps. So, and we can't really sell him. He's on too many wages. He will only get up to 30 million, maybe not even that. So if Erik ten Hag comes in and says, maybe I can get something out of you for one more year,
Yeah.
That's not the worst thing, especially because he's our only other number 9 that we have right now. He
You need
can
to get him in a shop window, don't you? Because as he stands right now, his value is through the floor. I think he's worth 20 million at current form. That's my opinion. I think he's 20 million on current form. I think buying clubs will know that. They'll sit there and go, well, he's on $250,000 a week. We're going to have to factor in that. He's not been great. He's had injury problems. His loan deal at Sevilla didn't work out very well. There's a lot of negatives currently linked with Anthony Martial. And the best way to change that is to get him back in the team and try and get a tune out of him in some facet. If it's getting 10, 12 goals in the Premier League or getting 10, 12 goals across all competitions, that would at least bring that value up and allow United to get some positive use out of Anthony Martial other than paying him £1 million a month. And secondly, to be able to say, look, everybody, Anthony Martial, would you like to buy him? That's kind of where United will want to be with him.
Even getting rid of him in January, just giving him a good 4 or 5 months.
Yeah,
like
100%.
There's no harm in it. There's no other strikers on the market, and we have one who has done it. Even if he's not happy, yeah, you do this all the time. And I honestly, I think it'd be better if we can just offload him, not pay his wages, and get 25, 30 million for him. But that's not going to happen. Anyone who's looking at that and going, we definitely need to get rid of Martial. Well, we can't. So
there's no buyers.
Yeah, might as well just make the best of a bad situation. Tell him 1 more year, we pay you well. He knows we pay him well. If Erik ten Hag can get a little bit of use out of him, I think that will be good enough for him. I think he had a bad experience in Sevilla. I think he probably doesn't want to come back to United, but he's coming back to something he knows. And if that changing room by the end of preseason is quite a bit healthier and we get rid of some of the bad eggs, I think you might be able to just kind of, help him to get back
making the steps.
He's also not a loud guy. He's notoriously quiet. Like he goes to training, goes back home with his baby mama and his children, and then comes back. He's not a loud person. He's not yapping away in people's ears. I really don't think so. I think he might have a bad attitude sometimes, but he's not very vocal.
Yeah, no, I agree. Totally. No, totally agree with you. Jesse, it's been a great show, mate. We've had a lot of comments. We've covered all the big stories. I've really enjoyed the show. It was the first of many. We're going to be doing another show on Wednesday, kind of the same feel. We're going to be going over all the deals that have been done, see what happens, see if your club's made the sales. We're going to be looking further down the Premier League pyramid as well. We're going to be looking at clubs like Leeds, who've been pretty active, and hopefully a few other clubs are going to start making those deals for us to discuss and see, how they're going to mould their teams coming for the Premier League going forward. So I just want to thank each and every person who's come to view the show. Everyone who's been in the comments. It's been fantastic. It really makes it a pleasure to do this, and we really enjoy doing this kind of stuff. If you can put a like on, if you can hit subscribe, put a comment in for us, and as always, if you want to be involved, please do get in touch. We're always here, and that is a genuine open invitation to absolutely anybody. Join us on Friday. We're going to have a show coming up. Me and Jesse got a few ideas. We're going to let the information out, put a show on schedule, 9 o'clock on a Friday. Annie, you get a shout out always, mate. Always for coming in and bantering Jesse with the Man United chat and your agendas as always. But ladies and gentlemen, until next time, we've been Dan and Jesse at Talk Football. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.